is, of course, somebody that's raced for TVR at the Le Mans 24 Hours this year. He's also driven in the FIA GT race at Donington and in the Sebring 12 Hours. Last seen in Tuscan's back at Croft at the start of May. He won there, so did Richard Hay, and the two of them now nose to tail as they come down towards Knickerbrook. Keane leading Caroline. Now, is Chris Stockton going to have another of his desperate moves on the inside? He has a look. Is he level? Yes, he is. Richard Hay gives him racing room. Through he goes. Chris Stockton then up into third. Hay down to fourth. And Stockton powering his way out of Knickerbrook now. Ben Samuelson, after getting involved in that first corner incident, trying to get himself back into the hunt then. Accelerating along Lakeside straight ahead of him is Robert Stanton, having his first Tuscan race, the brother of Richard Stanton, and Samuelson reeling him in now as they go left through Island Bend. Which way does Samuelson go? Lunges to the inside, coming into Shell Oil's hairpin. Through he goes, up on the inside, and that gives TVR's PR man another place. Ben having lost chunks of time because of that first corner drama. Well, Philip Keane, after his rather brutal way of getting the lead, is still there. Lee Caroline second, and Chris Stockton absolutely flying now. Stockton charging on in pursuit of the top two, coming down towards Old Hall Corner. Richard Hay fourth, dropping away a little bit now from Chris Stockton ahead of him. The pair of them going down through Denton's on towards Cascades. Stockton down into the left-hander now. There you can see behind him Richard Hay. The battered car, and the gap, I'm afraid, is widening a little bit between the two of them. Or is it? No, Stockton suddenly slows, coming through Cascades. Hay's alongside him. Richard Hay goes back into third place. Chris Stockton with some sort of problem, presumably the car suddenly faltered coming out of Cascades, and Hay needs no second invitation. Blast past him there. Chris Stockton right on his tail again, though, as they come through Shell Oil's corner. Now can Hay hang on to the third place this time? Chris Stockton tries to fight back as they come up towards Fulston's. You can see the damage at the front of Richard Hay's car caused by that collision at Old Hall. Meantime, Ben Samuelson about to try and gain a place as they come over the line here. Samuelson's works run car dives up on the inside. There's the boss ahead of him, Peter Wheeler. He gets past Hugh Marshall, and Ben Samuelson now turns through Old Hall, still trying to work his way back up the order after that drama at the first corner. Easily closing on Peter Wheeler. Peter making life a bit awkward though, coming into Cascade. He's not going to let Ben get past him there. Nose to tail, the two come out of Cascade. Samuelson pounces up on the inside. Through he goes. Ben Samuelson gains another place as they go down now towards the left-hander of Island Bend. For third and fourth, though, it is still Hay ahead of Stockton, but Chris Stockton challenges on the inside line there. Richard Hay again gives in racing room, and Stockton goes through cleanly. Runs a little bit wide up onto the curb, but Chris Stockton now blast out of dear lead. Richard Hay pushed down to fourth, but he's having another go at him as they come over the line down towards Old Hall. Stockton up into third, Hay fourth as they break for Old Hall Corner. Whether that damage to the front of Richard Hay's car has done more than just cosmetic damage, we'll have to wait and see. This is the leader in the meantime, Philip Keane. Lee Caroline is hunting him down all the while. Caroline has got the best lap of the race to his credit, and there is the gap. It's coming down and down all the time now. Cast your mind back to Rockingham last year at the last corner of the last lap. Lee Caroline leapt ahead of Philip Keane to take a win. Is he going to be able to get ahead of him here as we near the completion of the race? The gap is coming down and down all the time. The reigning champion, Lee Caroline, then getting closer to Philip Keane. Robert Stanton comes over Hilltop down towards Knickerbrook. Behind him there you can see Peter Wheeler, then Hugh Marshall, then the leaders. Philip Keane then in the racing green car just ahead of Lee Caroline. They've got to be ever so brave under braking. Hugh Marshall slows right down, gets out of the way. But the two of them now nose to tail on the last lap of the race. Philip Keane has seen that lead be eroded. He's delayed again there behind Peter Wheeler. Lee Caroline almost pushing him out of the corner. The two of them go up Clay Hill absolutely nose to tail now. Through two more corners to run. This is the leader, Philip Keane, right on the ragged edge then. Up towards Druids. Is Lee Caroline going to have a go here? No, he's not. Philip Keane takes the line for the corner. Accelerates down towards Lodge then. The last corner of the last lap. Philip Keane is the leader, but Lee Caroline right up alongside him. Down towards Lodge corner they come. On the inside is Caroline. On the outside is Philip Keane. Lee Caroline's going to go through. Is he on the inside line? Yes, he is, but Phil Keane tightens his line and comes back at him, coming out of the corner. The run up towards the checkered flag. Lee Caroline is just ahead, but Philip Keane's going to be alongside him as they come past the pits. The two of them overlapping. The timekeepers can barely separate them. Lee Caroline just gets the nod as they come over the line. Philip Keane second, and it's a dead heat on time between the two, but Lee Caroline just given the nod by the judges. Chris Stockton third ahead of Richard Hay, Darren Dowling and David Mason sixth.
Yeah, it was a close race. I thought if I could get just within shooting distance of him, he might make a mistake. And just in Druids on the last lap, he went in too early and messed his run up out, so I got the run on him out of Druids, which worked nicely, but it was a close finish.
Yeah, I mean, it's just one of those things. The car went off a bit towards the end, so we lost a bit of time. And I had a bit of a bump with Chris at the start, which I apologise for. I made a bit of a mistake, so. But no, it was good. It was all right.
Another win for Lee Caroline. He is going to be on pole for race 2, and you can see that after the break. Welcome back to Oulton Park for round 7 of the Carlube TVR Challenge. The cars are on the grid, ready for the second race of the weekend. It's the longer race of 10 laps. Lee Caroline, having won earlier on in the weekend, is on pole position. Philip Keane alongside him. The lights go out, away they go, down towards Old Hall Corner. And as ever, Lee Caroline makes a pretty dreadful start. Philip Keane leads with David Mason in the yellow car, diving up on the inside. Thruxton, though, there gets ahead of Richard Hay, who slips to third. Philip Keane runs wide, so also does Ben Samuelson. And the cars safely round Old Hall this time, down towards Cascades, with Thruxton challenging on the inside for the lead. He's going to go through, is he? Yes, he is. Thruxton, the man from Chester, gains the lead as Ben Samuelson scrabbles through on the inside as well to gain a place from Andy Holdham. Accelerating now down towards Island Bend for the first time. Thruxton leading, Philip Keane second, and Richard Hay, who was suffering with a slow puncture in the first race, is third, just ahead of David Mason. Fifth is Lee Caroline, who dives up on the inside to try to take fourth, and he does it. Caroline through on the inside, fourth at the Shell Oils corner. David Mason, though, coming back at him as they make the run towards Fulston's. They're side by side here. Lee Caroline just gets the place back, though. Stockton leading, second is Keane, third is Hay. Everybody else filing through as they power now up over hilltop. Tim Hood there, number 10, with work to do after a pretty slow start. But Stockton is leading, down to Knickerbrook. Philip Keane, who oh so nearly won the earlier race, dead heating across the line with Lee Caroline, is second. Richard Hay third, Lee Caroline fourth, David Mason fifth. And these five starting to edge away now from the pack behind, headed by Darren Dowling, with Ben Samuelson looking for a way past him here. Under the footbridge, going up towards Druids. Samuelson goes to the inside, past the water tower, then the outside for Druids itself. There you can see Thruxton then in the lead. Coming down towards Lodge Corner, still being chased by Phil Keane. Then Richard Hay with Lee Caroline right up behind him. David Mason waiting to see what develops ahead. These two nose to tail as they swing through Lodge Corner. Up Deer Leap, over the line now. Thruxton doing his best to try to build up the lead. He qualified quicker than anybody for the first race. Problems in the first corner when he was tapped into that slide by Philip Keane, costing him any chance of a win. Well, here he wants to keep Keane behind him. Down they come into Cascades, under braking, possibly Keane a fraction closer there through the left-hander. Accelerating now along next side straight. And that's what potentially, though, is Lee Caroline. Remember how he came good in part 2 of the first race. Well, is he going to be able to do that again in this race? He's got Richard Hay to get past first of all, then Keane, then Stockton if he wants to get himself into the lead. David Mason still fifth. Caroline and Mason, both from an oval racing background, two very, very rapid drivers, real hard chargers. But Stockton, ex-FF1600 racer, ex-Legends racer, comes into Fulston's using all of the curb there with Richard Hay not that far adrift from Phil Keane now, and he's taking Caroline and Mason with him. Down they come towards Knickerbrook once more. Stockton doing his level best to eke out more of an advantage, but he locks up coming into Knickerbrook. That's not going to help matters at all. Keane and Hay and Caroline are going to be a little bit nearer to him this time as they come through Knickerbrook. David Mason looking for a way to get really onto terms now with Lee Caroline, coming out of Knickerbrook, accelerating up under the footbridge and going now on towards Druids. Lee Caroline's car there gets all sideways. The car goes light as he comes over the brow of the hill. Lee Caroline right on the ragged edge. He's lost a little bit of time as a result of that. He's got Mason right up behind him, and that's given Richard Hay the breathing space he may need to get onto terms now with Phil Keane as they come down towards Lodge Corner. Stockton, though, is not getting away. They're still queuing up behind him. Through Lodge Corner now, powering up out of Deer Leap over the start and finish line. Stockton, then Keane and Hay, then Caroline and Mason. Lee Caroline's lost a real chunk of time, hasn't he, with that moment at the top of Clay Hill. Philip Keane braking desperately late there, the car quivering under braking, and Richard Hay right with him now. Ben Samuelson starting to catch that leading quintet as well. Phil Keane down towards Cascades, back on the tail of Stockton. I just wonder whether all is well with Stockton's car. It faltered in race 1, and he's not getting away from them in race 2, as his qualifying pace would have suggested. Keane tucked out behind him. Now David Mason all over Lee Caroline like a cheap suit here. Going one way, then the other, but Lee Caroline keeps him at bay. Through Island Bend, down towards Shell. Stockton still just ahead. Phil Keane second, and another good battle going on here. Tim Hood goes through there in number 10. Doing his level best to hang on to the place. The former Honda CRX and Fiesta racer has got Darren Dowling tucked up behind him. Tim Hood, who had a fourth at Castle Combe, powering his way now on towards Fulston's. Dowling right up behind him as Tim Hood launches the car over the curbs. Dowling sideways, back on the power. The in-web car now goes over hilltop as the leaders come through Knickerbrook. And certainly the top three look like they've broken away now. Lee Caroline not as close as he needs to be in that fourth place. Stockton, Keane, Hay, the top three. You can see the gap very definitely opening up now between the leading trio and the rest of them. Richard Hay, who's raced for Morgan and TVR at Le Mans in the last 3 years, comes now down towards Lodge Corner, chasing after Philip Keane, the ex-Formula Renault racer, and it's Keane giving Stockton a really hard time now as they come into the braking area. If they start squabbling amongst themselves again and hold each other up, Lee Caroline has a chance to get back with them, but at the moment it looks as though they've managed to shake off the Caroline and Mason battle. David Mason indeed falling away yet further from Caroline as they come over the line. So the three leaders out of Old Hall on towards Cascades once more. Lee Caroline there going through in fourth, in fifth place David Mason. But what can Philip Keane do now about Chris Stockton? He's stuck there behind him. Richard Hay out of Cascades, looking at the back of Philip Keane's car. Keane looking at the back of Stockton, and this time he's going to make a move, is he? No, Chris Stockton moves across, defends the line, 145 miles an hour in a straight line down towards Island Bend. The quick drivers can pull there. Well, Philip Keane right up behind Stockton, and Chris Stockton's abnormally wide. Tuscan keeping him at bay at the moment. That could help Richard Hay get even closer, and Philip Keane will know that Hay ain't that far adrift. He's needing to get past Stockton now before he loses much time to the black car in third there. Now, has Stockton got a problem, or is this Phil Keane mounting a real challenge? The two of them are nose to tail coming out of Oulton. This is Stockton's view. Now, where is Phil Keane? Is he behind him? Is he alongside him? Down towards Knickerbrook they come. There is Philip Keane going through, and Chris Stockton fishing for gears. He has got a problem. Into Knickerbrook, the new race leader is Philip Keane. Chris Stockton is second. Chris Stockton is a retirement by the look of it. He pulls the car off the circuit, and by the sound of it, no gears. That's what he was struggling with. Keane leads Hay now up into third, Lee Caroline. And the local hero, the man from just down the road in Chester, Chris Stockton, is out of the race. He's out of the car. Lee Caroline then up into the top three, right on the limit though there. He's got David Mason almost pushing him through the corner. The two of them nose to tail now, swinging up dear Lee. Caroline and Mason over the line. Ahead of them, the battle brewing for the lead though now between Philip Keane and Richard Hay. The pair of them down towards Old Hall Corner. Even more intense though at the moment, this fight for third, because David Mason now has a real chance of getting past Caroline, but Richard Hay's doing the same to Philip Keane almost there. Right up alongside him, heading towards Denton's. Keane covers the line, and Lee Caroline having to make his car very wide as well to fend off David Mason. Mason very, very quick, been a bit short of luck this year. Richard Hay in the meantime looking for the lead. Philip Keane still has the advantage, but only just. Up they come now towards Shell. Keane covers the inside line. Richard Hay locks up there, bit of tar smoke as he tries to find a way past the green car ahead of him. He's lost a length or two in the process of all of that. Philip Keane temporarily breathes a sigh of relief. The ex-single-seater hot shoe comes up towards Fulston's now. Hay second, Caroline third, swamping the curb. David Mason doing likewise in fourth place. And these four now well ahead of anybody else as they come down towards Knickerbrook once more. Is Richard Hay going to be close enough to attack this time? No, he's not. Philip Keane then, who led all of the first race bar the last run to the flag out of the final corner, is leading at the moment, and he desperately wants to make amends for yesterday. Second is Hay, third is Caroline, fourth is Mason as they power up the hill once again. Lee Caroline, former champion, indeed reigning champion. He's probably won more Tuscan races in the last couple of years than anybody else, but David Mason has always been there or thereabouts. And Mason desperately keen to get himself onto the podium. Caroline just ahead as they come down towards Lodge Corner. Philip Keane still leading the race though, and Richard Hay glued to the back of his car now. Caroline again with the car quivering under braking, slides into Lodge. David Mason tucked up behind him. Over the line go the leaders. Keane ahead of Hay, and Richard Hay now right in the wheel tracks, being urged on by his mechanics. Richard Hay goes to the inside line, heading into Old Hall. He's going to get through, is he this time? Yes, he is. Richard Hay takes over the lead and instantly gets away from Philip Keane, who's got a problem. Keane slows, coming out of the corner. Caroline goes past him. Where's Mason? David Mason's right up behind Philip Keane. Is he going to be able to find a way through, coming into Cascades? Now, was that a missed gear from Philip Keane, or did the car cut out, or has it got a problem? Well, certainly he's lost the lead, he's lost second, and he lost chunks of time in all of that as well. Richard Hay now leads the race, and by some margin over Lee Caroline, who's got Keane right up behind him. Down towards Shell they come. Now, what can Caroline do about Richard Hay? It's Hay in the lead, Caroline second, Keane third, David Mason fourth. Is Richard going to be able to make hay while the sun shines, so to speak, whilst Caroline's rather busy defending because he's got Keane and Mason tucked up behind him? This is where Richard Hay does need to get his head down now and try to build up the lead. Down they come towards Knickerbrook once more. Is Keane close enough to challenge Caroline? I don't think he is. What about Mason on Keane? Not this time. Stays in the wheel tracks. Out of Knickerbrook they come then. Second, third, fourth, nose to tail. And Philip Keane there, the man in the middle. He's trying to attack Caroline and keep David Mason behind him. Up Clay Hill they go now, heading on towards Druids. And David Mason pulls to one side, looks for a way past Keane's car, but he can't find a gap as yet. Philip Keane right on the limit there, going into Druids, running a little bit wide. Is he going to give the chance to Mason? Let's see. David Mason has a better line through the corner. Is he going to get the run on him down towards Lodge? Keane chops across the front there. Pretty brutal, that. Slams the door and bolts it. David Mason can't get through there. Into Lodge, out of Lodge, up Dear Leap. The gap between the leaders is coming down as well now. Lee Caroline is charging. Hay goes over the line. Caroline over the line. Onto the last lap of the 10 here at Oulton Park. The gap between the two of them is coming down. And Hay and Caroline, remember, have crossed swords a couple of times in the past. Lee Caroline wants another win. Down towards Cascades they come then, almost nose to tail now. Caroline, having shaken off the attack of Keane and Mason, can concentrate solely now on getting back onto terms with Richard Hay. Half a lap remains as they go down towards Island Bend here. Through the left-hander of Island Bend, then right into shallow. That's Mason losing it. Round comes the back. Off he goes onto the grass. David Mason, as ever, trying very, very hard, trying a bit too hard, but indeed the car spins onto the circuit. Does a donut, gets it back in the right direction, and is that going to jeopardise another place? Because now Ben Samuelson's looking for a way past to get fourth as well, on board with Ben as they head up now towards Fulston's. David Mason recovering after his wild old ride into the braking zone for Fulston's. Left over the curb, right over the curb, left again, up over Hilltop they will go. And David Mason, I think, has just about been able to hang on to that fourth place. Ben Samuelson has a look on the outside as they come down to Knickerbrook. Then he switches sides, goes to the inside. Is he going to go through? Uses the curb, slides over the grass, back onto the black bit, and spins. Does he? Half spins at any rate. Ben Samuelson, I'm afraid, instead of gaining a place, is in danger of losing one. In the meantime, the two race leaders are nose to tail at the last corner. Can Richard Hay hang on in there? Out of Lodge they will come, then up Dearly, then the run to the checkered flag. Richard Hay is just going to do it. Richard Hay wins. Lee Caroline second as they come across the line. The gap of the flag, 0.2 of a second as Philip Keane comes home third. And Richard Hay takes a well-deserved win under intense pressure for the last couple of laps from Lee Caroline. David Mason does hang on to fourth ahead of Ben Samuelson. Tim Hood sixth ahead of Darren Dowling and Andy Holden. So let's hear now from the race winner.
Not about fun, it was hard work. I mean, I really thought, Lee was going to catch me. He caught me so quickly and I thought, I'll never be able to hold him off. I was grateful to see the checkered flag, to be honest.
I need to think go away for the day and practice starting because, I made that race so much hard work for me. I had David on my case, had to overtake David. Then I had to catch all these lot. If I just got a good start, I might have been away.
It wasn't to be, but Lee Caroline is away in the championship. Richard Hay second ahead of David Mason, ahead of Tim Hood and Philip Keane, with Ben Samuelson rounding out the top six. The Carlube TVR Challenge heads this weekend to Thruxton. It's round 8 of the series. The cars lining themselves up on the grid, ready for race 1 of 2. It was all action last time, though, at Oulton Park. The lights go out, away they go. Down towards Old Hall for the first time. There's contact there. Keane hits Thruxton. David Mason's gone off as well, I think, there. Down towards Knickerbrook they come. Thruxton dives up the inside of Richard Hay. Everything locked up, goes across the grass, slides his way back towards the circuit. Down towards the Lodge corner they come. On the inside is Caroline, on the outside is Philip Keane. Through the left-hander of Island Bend, then right into shallow. That's Mason losing it. Round comes the back. Richard Hay is just going to do it. Richard Hay wins. Lee Caroline second as they come across the line. Lee Caroline is away in the championship. Richard Hay second ahead of David Mason, ahead of Tim Hood and Philip Keane, with Ben Samuelson rounding out the top six. Pole position for race 1 here at Thruxton, and it's going to be on a damp road, goes to Lee Caroline.
When it gets this close to the end of the season and all you got to do is finish every race, it's difficult. Do you race or do you just hold your position? But we're on pole, but it doesn't mean anything around here. It's not like Brands or Nokia where pole's a good position to start because it's such an overtaking circuit. We probably would have swapped the lead about 3-4 times before the end of the first lap.
And this is one of the drivers that hopes not just to lead but also perhaps to take a win, Philip Keane.
Yeah, I do like Thruxton. It's just it changes so quickly around here. As soon as the wind picks up, you lose so much time. You've really got to sort of pick your moment and get the lap in as quick as you can.
7 laps of racing ahead of us. The 5-second board then shown here at Thruxton. The drivers now look towards the lighting gantry. The lights will go red, engine notes will rise. When the lights go out, it's going to be time for blast off, and that is any second. Now away they go. Good start then by Philip Keane. Lee Caroline on his slick tyres, Richard Hay on slick tyres, struggle away from the line. That's Richard Hay's view as Tim Hood goes past him. Through Allard for the first time now, up towards the complex. It's drier than it has been, but it's still very, very slippery out there. And that's Tim Hood having a real moment coming up towards the complex. Scrabbles past David Mason on the inside and then runs off the road altogether. Gets back on in third place. Philip Keane leads. Mason is second. Tim Hood third. And those on slick tyres at the moment are really struggling. On board with Tuscan newcomer David Hornsey. And these are far from ideal conditions for your first TVR Tuscan Challenge race. Ahead of him is Peter Wheeler having to go to get past Lee Caroline. Spray being kicked up, traction at a premium, and the wet shod cars certainly now getting themselves into the right place at the head of the field. There goes Lee Caroline through in number 38, the championship leader there. Accelerating his way through Goodwood, then Village, then Church. They come around the fastest part of the circuit here. On board again with Richard Hay. Now it's a bit drier over here, there's less spray, but Hay hard at work. He's on slick tyres, remember, those ahead are on wet and they're getting away already. Being ever so careful as he comes now up through Church, then into Brooklands for the first time. Up Woodham Hill, heading towards the chicane. And that's Lee Caroline coming up alongside him and past him, and another one to the other side. That was Peter Wheeler going round Richard Hay on the outside. Lee Caroline on the inside then as they come into the chicane, braking as late as he dares on the wet road. Giles Cooper goes ahead of Richard Hay as well. Peter Wheeler taking to the curb. Is he going to stay ahead of Caroline? No, he's not. Lee Caroline grabs the place, then Peter Wheeler. Then Giles Cooper in the car, normally driven by Ben Samuelson. Then Richard Hay as they come across the line. Peter Wheeler then on his wet tyres, having the advantage to try and have a go at Lee Caroline on the inside at Allard. It doesn't work. He slots back in behind the championship leader. And Richard Hay now falling further and further back, and it seems that slick tyres was definitely the wrong choice now. Lee Caroline is ahead of this little battle of Wheeler and Cooper. Peter Wheeler taking to the curbs, but Lee Caroline is not being able to get away. They come to the complex then together, these three. The two TVR engineering cars running nose to tail there of Peter Wheeler and Giles Cooper, but David Mason is catching the leader, Philip Keane here. Philip won at the start of the year at Donington. Both he and David Mason, regular front runners, very, very quick drivers in these cars. And David Mason, who's also racing in the British GT Championship races this weekend in a Noble, getting lots of track time in here. Is he going to get the lead though? He's got the run possibly on Philip Keane now. Keane's car dancing around a little bit. Further back, another good scrap shaping up here, number 3 there, going through Hugh Marshall. You've got David Hornsey and Andy Holden around him to battle against. This is David Hornsey's view. The car almost snaking away from him as he powers his way now up through Goodwood and then Village. That's Hugh Marshall through on the inside. A much more experienced driver is Hugh Marshall. Gains the place. In the meantime, the car in the similar livery, that of David Mason, is still second as they come through the chicane. Philip Keane leading. He won at Donington. He dead heated for a win with Lee Caroline at Oulton Park. They come across the line here. Keane leading, but David Mason right up behind him now. Giles Cooper ahead of Peter Wheeler as they accelerate out of the chicane, so another place gain for Giles Cooper. First time we've seen him racing this year. That's going to put him now up into 5th position. It's Philip Keane leading, David Mason second, Tim Hood third, going really well here. Tim Hood heading for the podium perhaps. And he would certainly be deserving of that. He's not been on the podium terribly often in TVR Tuscans. We thought he was there at Castle Coombe until Lee Caroline's 10-second jump start penalty was rescinded. That kicked Tim Hood back off the podium again. Here though, he is third. He's not yet able to get onto terms with this battle for the lead between Philip Keane and David Mason, but you never know, if they continue to scrap like this, they might just hold themselves up sufficiently to give Tim Hood a chance. Lee Caroline here coming under pressure from Giles Cooper. Caroline on his slicks, Cooper on his wet tyres, and Lee Caroline, despite the lack of traction, relatively speaking, doing a pretty grand job here, keeping people at bay. Giles Cooper's car there snaking a little bit as he looks to try and get the run now on Caroline. But the race leader is Philip Keane as he comes up towards the chicane this time. David Mason second, not close enough to have a go. Then Tim Hood in third place there, you can see in the Bachmann Industries car, heading up towards the chicane. The next pair, Caroline, just ahead there of the purple TVR engineering run car of Giles Cooper. Cooper looking for a way by, but he can't find it. Peter Wheeler is next up in 6th place. Richard Hay is 7th. Hugh Marshall is 8th. And Caroline again keeping the better line into the chicane. He maintains the place then. Giles Cooper tucked right up behind him as they swing right, then left, then right again. Caroline almost heading for the curb there. He's going to be so careful when he applies the power because he just hasn't got the traction that Giles Cooper has. Cooper getting the run on him on the inside as they go into Allard, and Giles Cooper goes through there. Cooper gains the place then. He goes 4th down to 5th is Lee Caroline. Another little good battle here going on. Number 6, Andy Holden, ahead of David Hornsey, ahead of Rob Stanton. On board with David Hornsey in his first Tuscan race, looking now to try and move back ahead of Andy Holden as they come up across the line, but he can't do it. And Rob Stanton, brother of Richard, regular Tuscan and now GT racer, is right there as well behind. Out of Allard they go, up now towards the complex. On board with David Hornsey. Holden getting away, Rob Stanton having a look on the inside there, almost overlapping as they come into the complex. No real opportunity there, however, for Stanton to move through. He tacks back in behind number 7 there, David Hornsey in the regular Darren Dowling car. This is Hornsey's view, having to work very, very hard to keep Stanton at bay. Stanton in only his, third Tuscan race. David Hornsey in his first, and Stanton goes through as they approach the left-hander of Noble. Leaders in the meantime down towards the chicane. It's still Keane just ahead of David Mason, getting much, much closer on the braking. There's contact there. Bodywork comes off Keane's car. The two of them nose to tail as they wriggle their way out of the chicane. And David Mason now looking for a gap, searching for the traction. Gains a gear, accelerates over the line, has a look on the inside at Allard, but again Philip Keane moves across, covers the line as they turn through the corner, and in fact as he comes out of Allard, so Philip Keane has gained a couple of lengths there over David Mason. Up towards the complex they go now. Thruxton at the moment with differing parts of dryness, it would appear. The complex better than near the start line. Philip Keane then on this slightly drier part of the circuit is still leading. This is Peter Wheeler coming over the line. Comes up past the pits. Peter Wheeler then all on his own now. He's dropped away sufficiently, I think, from the cars ahead of Caroline and Cooper not to threaten them anymore. Equally, he's a bit in no man's land. He's not being caught anymore by Richard Hay. There's that bodywork that we saw come from Philip Keane's car as out of the chicane. Now comes the battle between Andy Holden and Hugh Marshall. Another place gained, therefore, for Andy Holden. Across the line, having a look on the inside there, you can see Hugh Marshall. He's going to go through, is he? Yes, he is. So he takes the place back. Goes back ahead of Andy Holden once more. Going now up towards the complex as the race leaders head once more down towards the chicane. Is it going to be a second win of the year for Philip Keane? It looks as though it is, because David Mason is not quite close enough this time as they make their way up towards the chicane. Checkered flag at the ready. It's going to be a win for Keane. It's going to be second for Mason, or is it? Because David Mason is catching under braking. He's not able to find a gap there, and so Philip Keane, if he gets a good run out of the chicane, he's going to have done it. The car snakes, he guns the engine, he powers to the line. It's going to be a win for Philip Keane. Second is David Mason as they come across the line to take the checkered flag. In very difficult conditions, Philip Keane wins. David Mason second, finishing third. A great result for Tim Hood. Lee Caroline hangs on to fourth on his slick tyres. Fifth is Giles Cooper. And Peter Wheeler is going to come home for sixth place. Here he is coming through the chicane now. Peter Wheeler accelerating now up towards the line. Richard Hay's going to be seventh ahead of the Hugh Marshall Andy Holden battle, with Rob Stanton on target to round out the top 10. Here's Richard Hay, ruining the decision to go onto slick tyres, the car not having handled at all as he wanted it to, with the setup and the wrong tyre choice in that race. And this is the battle going on between Rob Stanton and David Hornsey. It is for penultimate place, for 10th place, and up towards the line. Rob Stanton is just going to come through ahead of newcomer